If you're enjoying the Trees and Lines podcast, please head over to our Trees and Lines LinkedIn page and give us a follow. Thanks. Well, welcome to another Trees and Lines podcast. Again, we're at the Trees and Utilities Conference. Tom Sullivan is joining Tej and I as we have a conversation with Ashley Bennett from EPRI. Your title, Senior Research Specialist, or correct me on that, please.
That's a fine title.
Oh, okay. Well, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing these days?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me, and it's nice to be sitting here with you guys in person,
I like it.
looking at everyone face to face. So as you said, I work with the Electric Power Research Institute, or EPRI. I lead the vegetation management related research at EPRI. For those of you that don't know, EPRI is a nonprofit research organization, and I have the privilege of working with utility companies all across North America to try to address their vegetation management related challenges and issues that they face. I have my PhD in entomology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. At UW-Madison, I studied native plant pollinator interactions, and I looked to understand how we can design urban and rural landscapes to support beneficial insects and the ecosystem services that they provide, like natural pest suppression and pollination.
Wow.
After I did my PhD, I did 2 postdocs, both focused on pollinators and pollination, one in urban agriculture and one in biofuel cropping systems. After that, I got a position in industry doing data analysis. After doing that for a couple years, I took a position in academia, working as an assistant professor at New Mexico State University. And it was while I was at New Mexico State that I attended a right-of-way conference that I happened to meet someone from EPRI. And that person ended up eventually hiring me, and that's how I ended up at EPRI.
How long you been at EPRI?
I've been at EPRI about 5 years now.
5 years. By the way, just for clarity, I feel extremely undereducated listening to your CV. I was like, my degree and a half, it just feels very light.
Well, you can cut some of that out.
No, don't cut it out. I think it's very impressive. So maybe talk to us a little bit about EPRI and your current role, in terms of scope, the size of your team, and how you guys are able to work with industry and, talk a little bit about the effectiveness of what you guys are doing.
So I work with a pretty small team. We have a program manager that leads the transmission and distribution environmental solutions program, and I'm the only one that works on vegetation management.
Okay.
So it's mostly me leading the vegetation management.
This is it right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's kind of 3 areas of research that I lead at EPRI. One is looking at integrated vegetation management practices. So I have, for example, some utilities that are interested in grazing, so using goats on the right-of-way for vegetation management. And they want to compare that to more traditional IVM practices like mowing or chemical control. So we'll go out and we'll set up that experiment to look at the effectiveness of these different IVM treatments, see how they change the vegetation community. And of course, we're always looking at the cost component of this research to try to help them not only find effective solutions, but also that are most cost effective.
So are the initiatives being driven by industry? Is that how you're being directed? And then you guys are being used as a little bit of a incubator or a hub of, okay, hey, we're proving this out. And then industry then comes back and says, great, now we can build our economic platform around that?
Yeah, so the way EPRI is structured is we have utility members that join the different programs at EPRI.
Got it.
So our utility members then will fund the research in our programs.
Got it.
So every year we come up with a research portfolio and with different projects in it related to vegetation management, and they'll vote on and collectively decide which ones they want to fund for that year.
Tom, when you were at Grid, were you ever affiliated with EPRI? Like, did you have that relationship with them?
It was somewhat limited. We were
Okay.
never a full partner. We did participate in various workshops that EPRI put on. We knew your predecessor, John Goodrich Mahoney.
Got it.
And he was very involved. At that time, one of the things that they were involved with was the right-of-way symposia, the research symposia. Does EPRI still have a role in that program or in those conferences?
So I attended the last conference. So that was the first conference I had the opportunity to attend, and I did get an abstract accepted, so did get to present at that conference, and I'm looking forward to participating in the next conference.
Yeah, great.
So you're speaking tomorrow or today?
Today, right?
I'm
Today.
speaking later this afternoon. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the topic.
Sure. I'm going to be speaking on the use of a new monitoring technology called environmental eDNA, and the use of this new technology to try to help monitor for pollinators on rights of way. For those of you that may not be familiar with environmental eDNA, that's just DNA that's been left behind in the environment, and that can be from any organism, fungi and insects, plant pollen in the
Yep.
air. And I am interested in looking to see whether or not we can detect pollinator eDNA, for example, left behind on flowers.
Yep.
That we are trying to establish on the right-of-way. So going out and doing traditional, whether it be vegetation surveys or pollinator surveys, is very time and labor intensive. You send an entomologist out, they will collect the specimen. We have to then pin all the specimens we collect, and then we send them off to a taxonomist to get them identified to the species level.
Yep.
So it takes a long time and it's expensive. So when we have a lot of right-of-ways that we're wanting to try to monitor for biodiversity, hopefully this will be a new tool that we can use that will be faster, hopefully cheaper, and will let us monitor a lot more right-of-ways than we're currently able to do.
The biodiversity side of things, like I'm going to take the other side, maybe as a uninformed cynic about the whole industry, right? Like,
Okay.
And so I'm just going to throw out something. Like, let's say, do you believe that like biodiversity is expensive? Like for utilities to make these type of decisions and have environmental considerations, by the way, which I do believe is important. But given that we live in this very cost-focused world, right, where we're trying to keep energy prices down for end users and customers, how do you think about that? How does your research factor in the economic side of some of these decisions versus like nice to have, necessary? Like, how do you, when you present that research, how much of the cost element are you also presenting?
So we try to document cost and make the cost argument in virtually all of the field studies I do. But let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
That I'm very, very passionate about.
Okay.
So we know we have thousands of acres of right-of-way habitat across the landscape.
Yep.
One of the reasons I came to EPRI was thinking about the conservation potential of all of this right-of-way habitat. So once I was at EPRI and learning a little bit about vegetation management, how the utilities work, there's an opportunity every time a new right-of-way is built, a new solar site is built, they're going out and doing construction or management on the right-of-way, and we're creating bare soil conditions. And we have to put down a seed mix to stabilize the soil,
Right.
to prevent water runoff and soil erosion. So we have a choice to make. Typically, traditionally, they've been putting down a non-native turf grass mix every time they go out and need to put down a seed mix. So can we make a switch to a regionally appropriate native seed mix that will establish native vegetation on our right-of-ways, at substations, and at solar sites instead of using a non-native seed mix? So this has been an area of focus ever since I got to EPRI, is trying to help the utilities make a business case.
Yeah.
You would think switching a seed mix would be super easy, right?
Yeah. No.
Not that hard. It's really hard.
It is. We're trying to change the culture.
To try to do something as simple as switch from a turf grass mix to a native seed mix. So we've been doing field trials. I've been helping the utilities develop seed mixes, go out and test seed mixes. collect data to show that the germination rates and percent cover they're going to get is going to match that of the turf grass mixes have been using, then also document those biodiversity benefits. And there's a lot of them. When you're able to put a floristically diverse seed mix out on the landscape, you're going to have benefits to pollinators, to other insects, and that's going to trickle on up the trophic cascade to affect animals like bats and birds.
Wow. That is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Wow, this is cool.
EPRI has a partnership program with utilities can participate in related to pollinator habitat. And could you tell us more about that?
So we have a whole nother group called Power on Pollinators at EPRI that focuses on, pollinator outreach and communication that also does pollinator-focused research. Is that the program you're thinking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Power on Pollinators is led by Jessica Fox at EPRI, and there's many utilities that participate in Power on Pollinators, and they specifically are focused on, communicating a lot of the work they do around pollinators, and some of the field studies that we do in the program I work can also helps utilities talk about the value they're doing around pollinator conservation and putting habitat on the landscape.
Yeah.
Obviously, both Phil and Tom are champions of the Right-of-Way Stewardship Council. Is there a lot of this incorporation?
Yeah. So I saw some overlaps out of I haven't seen the standard in quite a while, but the use of native seeds, and I believe that's one of the requirements.
Correct. And now, Ashley is a member of the Right-of-Way Stewardship Council, so she helps guide that program.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
So as part of my position at EPRI, I am fortunate enough to be able to sit on the Right-of-Ways Habitat Stewardship Council and participate in those meetings. And I'm glad to be able to have a voice in helping guide some of the standards. EPRI's had a long history of being involved in this organization, and has helped develop some of the earlier guides.
I believe the first, or at least the standards that were used to develop the right-of-way steward standards came from an EPRI-supported project with Dr. Nowak out of Syracuse. Am I right on that, Tom?
That's correct. Yeah, EPRI sponsored or funded Chris Nowak to write the first draft of the standards that we now use for the right-of-way steward accreditation. Yep.
Oh, very cool.
I'm glad to hear you're involved in that. It's a program that just keeps growing, slow but sure, and it's, I think, a wonderful program.
Yeah, so how do we grow it?
It is a demanding one for utilities. I believe the very first one, and it's much better now, described the process as similar to visiting a proctologist. So it was...
We're definitely going to cut that out, right?
That's okay. That's key edits.
I'd love to keep that in, by the way. But amazing.
Why don't you tell them how it's gotten better since then?
Well, it has. It has evolved a number of times. I think we're on the third version.
Yeah, I think, there is a new version. Actually, was discussed yesterday at the plenary session, and it'll be out for review right after this meeting. Well, Chris Nowak was the author of the first draft of the standard, and Chris and I together did the first audit in the program. And one of the first things he said to the company personnel was, we're defense attorneys, not prosecutors. This is a collegial effort. We're working together with you on this. Yeah. So that tries to set the right tone for working with them. Yeah, and they appreciate that because, they think auditors, oh my God, what? Yeah. But they do have to prove everything to meet the standards. Yeah, so it's rigorous.
My quote, by the way, came from the lead of the Right-of-Way Steward Committee now. So, I mean, it's not an easy process, but they really have streamlined it and made it much more efficient to go through.
Yeah, it has evolved, and we're trying to be more customer-friendly in terms of the exchange of information and making all that work. Yeah.
It's a
Have
great
you been?
process.
Have you been on an audit in the field?
I haven't.
We'll have to
I
invite
would,
you
I would
on one.
love to come on an audit in the
Okay.
field. I would love to join you.
Excellent. We will do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
I like it.
So, Ashley, one of the things that impresses me about the right-of-way stewards is they almost always answer the question, why do you do it? And these are the best programs in the country, in my opinion. And the managers always say, we want to get better. And I'm pretty impressed with that philosophy. They got probably the premier IVM programs, and they're wanting to get better.
Yeah, I have the opportunity to work with some great IVM programs across the country, and a lot of them are really, advancing the way and monitoring, especially for biodiversity, kind of going above and beyond, just trying to control undesirable vegetation, but really promoting desirable vegetation, using those native seed mixes, and then wanting to document the value that the species they're supporting on their right-of-ways is having, so they can show the value internally to their companies, but then also communicate that externally as well.
Can I back up and ask one more question about the research EPRI does? Is it
Sure.
the distribution limited to the participants that support that particular project, or what's the requirements there?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit research organization, so we want to be able to share our research with the public. So usually, right after research is published, it's always available to the public, but immediately available to those members that are participating in the research. So initially, usually the public could, for example, purchase a report, but then eventually all the research becomes freely available.
That's fantastic. Well, Ashley, thanks for making some time today.
Yeah.
I feel like we warmed you up before your big event this afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you for making the time. This was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
We look forward to reading more of your research and kind of following what you're up to. And again, thanks for making the time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it for this episode of Trees and Lines, brought to you by Iapetus Holdings. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. If you have any questions or comments on any of our episodes or ideas for topics or guests, we'd love to hear from you. Please contact us at treesandlines@iapetusllc.com. We'll chat with you soon.